Hi, I'm Luisa. I just spent 6 months travelling across North America, and these vlogs are some bonus content that I filmed during that period and didn't have a chance to edit because they were a little bit more complicated to edit, but I hope you like them. So I was going to talk today about safety. So a lot of people have said to me, oh my god, you're going travelling on your own, are you mad? Like, you're a woman, how can you keep yourself safe? And there's a couple of basic precautions you can take, which I always try and do everywhere. The first one is, I always try and book Airbnbs that seem like they're in nice places. So I try not to book places in the rundown part of town. And I made this mistake once when I was in San Francisco with Harriet. And booked this really nice hotel. It was lovely from the inside, but it was in the Tenderloin. And Harriet and I turned up separately because we'd got different flights at different times. And the area around the hotel was awful. And they had doormen on the door of the hotel, and it kind of burned me a bit because we just didn't really feel safe in San Francisco the whole time we were there. And we walked from our hotel to get some breakfast, amazing brunch place that I've never stopped talking about ever since we left there. And we walked around town, but the actual part where our hotel was just, there's a lot of crime, a lot of drug deals, and thousands of people living on the streets, which in itself's not I'm not scared of homeless people, but I am scared of people doing drug deals and a large volume of men who are off-grid in the same area. It makes me feel really unsafe. So I try to book places in decent areas. And when it comes to Airbnbs, there's a couple of things that I try and do. I'll often book Airbnbs in casitas or in sort of people's houses, attached to their houses, so that you actually have the Airbnb host there just in case anything kind of goes wrong or you need any help. Or I'll book places that are kind of self-contained but in a complex or something, so there's people around. There might be a concierge and there's a bit of support for you. Or I'll just book it in a really, really nice area where you know you're not going to have any trouble. Obviously, there's a cost associated with this because cheaper places are in the bad, less good parts of town. So it's something to be aware of. Hotels, I kind of take the same approach. I'll try and book them in nice areas so that we don't have the Tenderloin thing again. So in LA, as an example, I booked a hotel just off Hollywood Boulevard. And I got a cab there and I left there, but the hotel itself was gorgeous, but I didn't feel unsafe actually there. That was fine, but you got to be careful. You just got to be careful. You just got to have your wits about you when you're booking places because you're quite vulnerable. I try not to arrive really late at night, and obviously that's more difficult in the winter. I'm traveling in the winter at the minute than it is in the summer because it gets dark now at 5. So you basically have to be at your Airbnb before 5. And last night I didn't get, because the way that my flights were, and I flew from Aspen to Denver and then I got a flight from Denver to Phoenix. Because of the way that the flights were, I couldn't get to Phoenix before 10 o'clock. And no matter how I did it. And actually my flight was cancelled. My first flight was cancelled yesterday and I had to get a later flight from Aspen. That was a whole drama, which I'll explain in another vlog. But because of that, I didn't arrive till 10, so I just got a taxi straight to the apartment because it's safer. And I use, when I get taxis, my preferred taxi provider is actually Uber. And I do that because you get the number plate of the person, so you know you're getting in the right cab. Uber offers some protection, not loads, but at the very least you have the guy's registration number, you know the name of the person, and if you need to do anything with, cruise control or whatever, you actually have those basic information about people. When you order through another taxi company, you don't have that. And the other thing I do, if I do have to use a local company, which I will use if Uber's not available, then I generally just ask the taxi driver's name So like if there's any issue, then you know the guy's name. But I've never had any issues with cab drivers. They've always been incredibly hospitable and kind to me, especially in America. I mean, thing to kind of understand about a lot of North American men is they're quite protective, and generally if you're like in a cab on your own, they'll be really chivalrous and nice to you and open the door for you, and they'll treat you really well, and as long as you're like polite back, you don't really have an issue. So I would just kind of say be a bit more courteous than you might be in your home country, because you're a guest in their country, right? And you need to behave nicely to people and say thank you, and always tip, so don't get an issue with like angry drivers or anything. The other thing I do is if I'm staying in a hotel or I don't think that the door is lockable, or just if I'm staying in an Airbnb and the front door lock's not great, or I don't feel very protective, I actually bought one of these locks. So you put this into the door, this is your door, and then you shut your door, and then you, in fact I've done it the wrong way, you do it this way, shut it in the door like this, this is your door, and then you loop this through here, like that, and it stops your door from being able to be opened. So if you are worried and concerned, or staying in hotels or whatever, then you can, or staying in there an Airbnb inside somebody's house, you can get one of these. They're really cheap. I think I paid about £5 for this. It's really useful, and it'll protect you because nobody's getting in, no one's getting through that. The other thing I try and do is, like, if I have delivery drivers drop stuff off, I always make it seem like there's someone else here. So like I might say like, oh honey, you're no, Starbucks is here, or whatever, just so people are aware you're not on your own. Yeah, I often, there's lots of things you can do to keep yourself safe, but I think the main thing to do is to just not, if you're ever in a situation where you feel like you're not safe, just get yourself out of that situation as soon as possible. Call a cab, go into a shop, just get yourself out of that situation, because 9 times out of 10 you're out of the situation, it's not going to be an issue. Yeah, and just take care out there, because it is a bit scary, and sometimes people do cause you some trouble, but I haven't had any issue, especially in the last couple of years. If you're quite assertive and upfront with people, they tend to leave you alone anyway, in all honesty.